Welcome to Running to Glory, the Hyrox Training Playbook, the podcast where we dive into the world of high-intensity fitness competitions and uncover the secrets to achieving peak performance. Today, we have a very special guest, Daniel Ng, a dedicated coach, fitness enthusiast, and second runner-up in the Hyrox men's singles competition in Singapore 2024. Daniel not only excels in Hyrox, but has also clocked an impressive 2.4-kilometer run in under 9 minutes. As my personal running coach, he brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to help us understand what it takes to train for such demanding events. Get ready to explore everything from training routines, nutrition, and mental preparation to funny and inspiring stories from his fitness journey. Stay tuned as we unlock the playbook to Running to Glory with Daniel. So, okay, how did you get into this Hyrox thing? Was this something that from the first Hyrox you joined or?
So Hyrox came to Singapore last year, right?
Yes.
And basically there was a lot of commotion around it in the lead up to the first event.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even sure that I wanted to do it in the first place.
Okay.
Yeah, I was on a long holiday in Europe with Vic. And that was around June. The race is in October.
Yeah.
And yeah, I haven't signed up yet. Only when I came back in July and I saw a lot of gyms were getting into it, and
Yes.
a lot of friends which I worked with before also want to try, right? Then I was thinking, why not? Since I run, not very seriously, but I do run sometimes,
Yes.
and the movements are kind of basic enough to pick up.
Okay.
You know, it's not too complex that I have to spend a long time learning it. So yeah, with those thoughts in mind, I just figured I'll give it a shot lah. So the lead up to it, I would say it was a good 3 months of actual preparation time, much less than what I did in the recent Hyrox.
Okay.
So I would say I did relatively okay. I managed to complete the first race.
Did you do singles?
I did the singles men's open category.
Wow, very
Yeah.
brave for the first Hyrox to do the
Yeah,
men's
yeah.
singles.
Correct.
Yeah.
But even then, right, when I signed up for it, one of my friends who's a fitness freak was
Yeah.
asking me, why didn't you try the pro? You
Oh
know,
my God, okay.
he was already enticing me to level up. His thinking was that you know that you can complete the singles.
Okay.
You know, but with the pro, you know, the added challenge of heavier weights,
Yes.
you know, naturally you want to doubt yourself, and that will kind of force you to get out of your comfort zone and try.
Wow.
But the ticket has already been bought,
Yeah.
and I figured that okay lah, you know, first time just take it easy.
So how
it's
did you
relative
do?
easy.
Well, the first time, the men's singles.
I managed to complete the race under 1:30, so
That's very
1:29.
cool. I think it's very comfortable for you.
I did a kind of a simulation before that race itself,
Okay.
and my timing was around there as well. So when I executed it on race day, I was quite
Yes.
satisfied with my performance.
I mean, Hyrox is becoming so popular. I think last year maybe not many people knew about it, but this year I definitely saw more gyms jumping in
Yeah,
and
definitely.
training. I mean,
Correct.
you may have been able to do it with 3 months training, but for somebody that has maybe never done Hyrox before, what would you recommend? How long lead time? Because I think 3 months, it's kind of short, right?
It really depends on the individual, I
Okay.
would say, because your current fitness level,
Yeah.
will determine how long of a time you need to prepare.
Oh, okay.
Signing up for the race 3 months, beforehand.
Yeah.
I already had a relatively strong running background, I would say.
Yes, I remember
know?
you said something about you did 2.4 and under 9
Under
minutes.
9 minutes, yeah.
Now,
My
somebody with that
PB,
fitness, yeah.
Okay, so for myself,
Yeah.
I felt that 3 months was a suitable time
Okay.
to get into race condition,
Yeah.
race shape, and complete it without too much of an issue,
Okay.
injuries and whatnot. But if you're looking at a beginner who has not done running for a period of time,
Yeah.
or maybe has not even visited the gym for a few years, they should be a little bit more conservative and give themselves a larger period of time to train, somewhere anytime between 6 to 12 months.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a bit more realistic. And within that time also, they would want to structure their workouts in a way that they do not overload themselves too quickly. And hurt themselves in the process of training, which is very important.
Yeah. But more importantly, is 6 to 12 months. Most people will be asking the question how often do I have to train per week? you know?
Okay, yes. So it really depends on the individual's schedule as well, because most of us are working professionals, right? And from Monday to Friday, we're quite packed. So I would advise maybe starting off with a 30-minute to 40-minute session during the weekdays, whenever you can spare it, if time allows for it. Do a mixture of training as well. It's not just one workout that you will have to do in the lead up to the event. You have to mix up run training together with strength work. And closer to the race itself, it's a little bit of a blend, what they call compromise training. So this is crucial for them to practice, because on race day itself, that's where you're going to be doing that compromise training in its entirety. You're going to be running and then doing some heavy lifting straight after. So you have to condition your body for that.
So it sounds like it's not just running, you know, because I think when I did my Hyrox, I found that not all the movements we actually do it in the gym, right? I mean, like the sled push and pull, I've never even seen the sled before.
Correct.
You know?
Yep. That's
so
right.
when you say training, you mean training at home? Do they have to go to a specialized Hyrox gym?
So that's a good question. So I've also had some people ask me, like, if they don't have access to sleds, what are certain alternative exercises they can do to prepare? I mean, that's a little bit extreme, but if you want to go ahead and do that, it's the closest movement you can do. But anyway, building strength, you can use equipment such as barbells, dumbbells, kettlebells. And the base work of actually building a solid strength foundation is done really early in your training. So when I was sharing with you the 12 to 6 months lead time to prepare for the race, I would say a good 3-4 months, that's where you focus on those basic movements with barbells, kettlebells, dumbbells. And maybe a little bit closer to the race, like 2 to 3 months out, you could consider signing up with a gym membership which offers those equipments that you need to practice for during the race, such as your sleds, what else do they use? The sandbags, you know, so there's no need to start practicing those movements so early on in your training. You know, if you already have a gym membership for, let's say, somewhere that has barbells and kettlebells, that's a good start. You have more than enough to get you on your journey.
So what do you think is the most important thing to start with? Is it running? Because that's the one that kills?
Well, half of the race is running, right? And actually, I have seen a lot of people kind of neglect that portion of it going into the race. Sure, you know, there are 8 stations, which looks very glamorous when you are training, and it makes a good Instagram reel, you know, when you actually post your videos of you doing those stations. But if you don't practice enough of the running as well, then you won't be able to fully perform on race day. So with that said, it is important to kind of like prioritize your run training as much as you do your strength and your stations. And running is the easiest part of the sport, Hyrox, you know, that you can get started with. Like, you don't need any equipment at all, right? If you have, you know, a park connector or a running track nearby, you can just go out for a run. And that's basically
because actually the total amount that we need to run for Hyrox would be the 8 kilometers, but actually it's more than that, isn't it?
So there's a little bit of a debate. I think Hyrox may have even shared that the entirety of the workout, right, that you do will be beyond 8 km, inclusive of the area in between the running track and the station. So that's what they call the rock zone. And your time, overall time for the race, still runs when you're in that rock zone. A lot of people tend to kind of get carried away once they enter that area, thinking that, oh, okay, now's the time for me to catch my breath before I start the stations.
But actually, if you want to do well,
you have to kind of like either fast jog or still maintain your run pace.
So how much should we be able to run before we think we can join Hyrox? Like, is there a number? Like, if you cannot even run 5 click, don't even bother, you know?
I would say 5 km is a safe number to kind of gauge yourself off. I mean, Hyrox also has different categories, right, for you to join. So if, let's say, you're doing the relay, that's only like a 2 kilometer run for you to perform. But if you're talking about the doubles or the singles event, and you have to run that 8 km or more, right? A good gauge would be, I would say, a 10 kilometer. If you're able to sustain a 10 km run, it doesn't have to be fast, just if you can complete it in its entirety without walking, I would say you would do pretty well in the race itself.
I mean, I have so many questions. One of it is, out of all these 8 stations, we're presuming people actually know what the 8 stations are, but what is the one that you think is the most difficult, that is going to trip up somebody who has not done Hyrox before?
If you have never done any of the stations, I would say the movement that will catch you most off guard would probably be the sleds lah.
You think the sleds?
Yeah. Especially the sled pull.
The pull, that really killed me.
Yeah.
I can't do the sled pull.
Because the pull, it's a very tough movement to replicate in practice unless you have the actual
sled, right?
and the rope itself, which not many gyms do provide. I was saying some exercises that you could do beforehand to prepare. But still, those exercises would not be able to give you that stimulus. For example, the barbell deadlift exercise, right? It would help you pack on a lot of strength to perform that station. But you still need to do the actual movement in order to be proficient at it. So that on the race day, if you plan on completing it within a set period of time, you would have that practice, that experience beforehand.
How about the wall balls? Do you think that's something that, I mean, it obviously doesn't challenge you, but that surprised a lot of people,
I mean, I have to agree on that as well. The wall balls can be tricky. A lot of people go in thinking that, the weight should be manageable, even it's like 4 or even 6 kilos, right? But the sheer volume
times
of
75
reps, 75 for the ladies, and then the guys who have to complete 100 in total, the volume itself is a killer.
I agree.
And the movement, even though you can kind of replicate it if you don't have the actual wall ball itself, is still not the same. We have members or clients saying that they practice for the wall balls by doing this exercise called the thrusters.
Thrusters.
But even when you're doing that exercise where you're kind of gripping the dumbbells with 2 hands, it's not completely the same as when you hold a ball and you have to kind of like squeeze it by the side, and that kind of saps away your energy as you throw and catch it, you know.
And on the day, so many things like the ball is being slippery.
Yes, correct.
And
all those factors, all those factors. And it doesn't help that it's the last station.
The last station.
You know, so no matter how fit you are, and if you have been pushing yourself so hard at the very start, you're gonna feel it by the end.
So I actually met you first because I joined one of your classes, which was conducted to train people for Hyrox. And that was the first time, that was like several months ago, right? Before May, before Taiwan Hyrox. And that was the first time I actually even did a specialized training for Hyrox, and I absolutely died. I mean, how long have you been conducting those classes? Because you did your own Hyrox, then after that you actually had these special Hyrox training on Saturdays, Sundays at lower piers, and they're always fully booked. So how long have you been doing it?
Well, the class is relatively new. I started it at the beginning of this year, actually. Yeah, so with the blessing of Jessie, right, the owner, she actually allowed me the space to kind of come up with the own workout to help members who are interested to participate in the upcoming races. And my rationale on mentality is that I want to keep the classes small or relatively small due to the fact that everyone who participates will have a shared or equal time at the stations so that they can improve. You know, if the classes do get too crowded, what will compromise would be the quality of the session.
And I like your rationale for those classes also, because I remember, I think I attended maybe 2-3 times, but the first time we actually didn't even do the Hyrox stations. We were doing, I think you're right, thrusters with the weights and everything.
Correct.
And once we could get that, then we did mini Hyrox, which wasn't even 1 kilometer. Was it 100 meters or 500 meters?
Around there, lesser than the actual, correct.
So then
so the rationale behind that was to progressively build up the intensity and duration for the members who are participating in the class.
Yeah.
So if you recall what I mentioned earlier, for a beginner who is just starting out in this sport,
Yeah.
they should not overload themselves too quickly.
Okay.
You know, so if let's say I have never done any running or weights before and I sign up for a race that is like 12 months out,
Yeah.
I should not be going for 8 km runs and pushing the actual weight of the
Yeah.
event right away.
Yes.
That is a quick way to get injured.
Yes.
And if you don't get physically injured, you are going to get a mental burnout
Yes.
relatively quickly.
Yeah.
You know, so when I was designing my programs
Yeah.
and we were quite far out from the June race, I was intentionally making sure that the running mileage was built up progressively.
Yes.
You know, and the duration, the weights involved, were made a little bit heavier over the weeks of training.
Yeah.
Not suddenly you're going for those runs.
And I can tell that all those people that were in the class did very well for the June Hyrox.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
I would say so. We managed the 100% finishing rate, so
Yes.
everyone completed the race.
Nobody died.
Yeah, nobody died, thankfully.
Yeah. So I thought that was very helpful. But even after the June Hyrox, I actually joined you for your online running program.
Yeah.
And I actually hate running, but actually it was quite fun because every week you gave us 3 runs to do.
Correct.
And at first it felt like, it wasn't very much, or maybe I couldn't do it. But as you build up, it got better and better. Like I could actually do the intervals.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, there's a saying, right? Variety is the spice of life.
Yes.
And that applies to running as well.
Yeah.
A lot of us, think of running, and most of us probably would have made the mistake that when I go for a run workout, it
Yeah.
always has to be 100% effort.
Yes.
If I'm not breathless or panting by the end of the session, then it's not a good workout.
Yes.
Yeah. So I fell into that same pit as well.
Yeah.
I made that mistake early on in my fitness journey.
Yeah.
And for a time, I had a very unhealthy relationship with running. Whenever I thought about it,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, it's just another day I have to run, But as
That was totally me, lor.
Yeah, but as we learn, right,
Yeah.
as we encounter, other individuals who have been in the sport longer than we have,
Yeah.
we exchange information and like how you picked up, the running program that I was sharing.
Yeah.
There are different kinds of runs,
Yes.
that help you in different ways and in different areas.
Yes, I was
Yeah?
actually very surprised because the last time the only runs I did was a 5 kilometer, either slow jog or
There you
maybe you
go.
try to run a
Yeah.
bit faster. Yeah.
Correct. So especially with Hyrox training,
Yeah.
you need these different kinds of runs.
Yes.
The slow ones, which are relatively longer in duration, to help you build that strong aerobic capacity,
Yes.
that gas tank,
Yeah.
in layman's term.
Yeah.
And then you need your speed intervals, because when you take off after your stations, you want to kind of build up enough speed.
Yes.
It's only a short 1 km run before you get back into the station, right?
Yes.
And we don't want to be cruising,
Yeah.
too easily on that
Yeah.
run. So if you practice it during training,
Yeah.
that switch between fast and slow,
Yeah.
then your body will adapt and you'll be able to perform quite well for Hyrox.
I thought what was amazing about the run training was I learned that there was actually all these intervals. At first you think 400 meters, that's quite short, what? But I think we had to do it like 6 times or 8 times every week.
Correct.
And that actually really, I think that, I don't know if it improved my running, but I think it certainly helped more than my weekly 5 kilometer run.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So sometimes when we go for runs,
Yeah.
and we set ourselves a target distance which
Yeah.
is relatively long, like
Yeah.
a 5 kilometer or 10 kilometer run, it can be quite daunting to
Yeah.
even start.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest part of running, right?
Yeah.
It's not when you're actually doing the run,
Yes.
but to get yourself out the door, and
Yes.
to get started. So if you are able to look at your program and kind of visualize or break down your running workout
Yeah.
into smaller segments,
Yeah.
like as you were mentioning earlier, 400 meter repeats,
Yeah.
6 times.
Yeah.
That is significantly lesser than the longer runs
Yeah,
that I
the
used
total
to do.
volume, yes.
And I get to rest after
Yes.
each set.
Yes.
So that kind of compiles and
Yeah.
allows you to perform those workouts.
And then your run workouts, you actually had us either measure ourselves by heart rate, 1, 2, or by our pace.
Yes.
And was that designed with the rationale in mind that you wanted to work out in the different zones, the zone 2, and then you wanted us to have some lactate clearance and then push up to maximum heart rate.
Correct. So another thing about run training, like once you've already set aside the different types of runs you're going to do, right? For example, your long, slower runs, your speed intervals. The next thing you want to dial into is your zoning, because everyone's body is different, right? Each of us has a different threshold, a maximum heart rate, and no workout is a one-size-fit-all unless you're able to kind of like tailor it down to your individual zones. There's a lot of ways which we can help, identify what zones are suited for you. We won't have to go too in-depth into that, but a simple Google search online would actually give you like various zone calculators and different.
You mean the one
methods
using
of
age,
testing.
like your age, then maximum heart rate minus, but is that accurate, or do we have to do that 20-minute running test?
Okay, so for my run program specifically, we started off with a time trial.
Yes, that was the worst ever. That is so bad. That was 20 minutes maximum effort, right?
Correct. Yeah, that's just one of the ways to perform the zoning. So
I thought I went to hell and back.
It's a time trial test, and after which we took like your average heart rate to determine what your zones are. I feel that this is a little bit more accurate as compared to the very generic 220 minus your age. And that is basically what most of our smart watches and devices kind of use to determine what our heart rate zones are. But as mentioned at the start, our bodies are all very different. So unless we put ourselves through that test of intense workout, we won't truly know for sure what our limits, our capabilities are.
But what was interesting was that, last time people would always tell me, oh, you are meant to run slow because you don't have the muscle fiber, you can never sprint, They put us in category. But after doing that workout, okay, not that I can sprint very fast, but I realized I can sprint. I can. Within my speed, I actually can sprint. But last time when I was in school, people were like, oh no, you cannot be a sprinter, you are the slow runner. But actually, we don't have to split into these groups. When we train,
I think that mindset is very old school. And what is kind of hindering what is hindering like progress in terms of our ability to kind of run better, run faster is really the convenience of running this test. It takes time and effort to kind of execute this structured program, and one has to be relatively consistent in order to see improvement.
That's true. I used to dread Sunday night because I was so worried that you'll send the run schedule for Monday, but now I dread it less and less already.
There you go. So like once you're able to determine what your capabilities are and you work within your zones, it makes everything a little bit more manageable. And actually I wasn't running a lot because some of the runs where you're like 400 meters times 6, it was barely 3-4 kilometers only. There you go. But yet you're still able to achieve the necessary stimulus to help your body improve. And that's the beauty of it.
But why I actually joined this, even though I'm so lazy to run, was that I thought I could run because last year I actually did the stand chart and I did the 10-kilometer run. Not fast, but slow. So I thought I'm not going to train for Hyrox in June. I wasn't going to train for Hyrox in May, where I did Taiwan as well. And then when I ran the Hyrox, I cramped up. On lap 7, I cramped and I couldn't run anymore. I had to walk. I'm like, but on my watch, I hadn't even done 10 kilometers, but I already cramped. So it showed that it was a different type of running, and I didn't account for, I don't know, a lot of factors.
There you go. So you mentioned cramps earlier, right? So cramps is quite a prominent issue that most Hyrox participants face.
Why do you think that's so? Because we run too fast? We're too excited?
Okay, so there's a few reasons. Number one is just poor conditioning. Right?
I think so.
If you're not, if you haven't been training at that intensity or even the duration, of such events, and Hyrox race itself is the first time you're going to push yourself to perform at 100% effort for like an hour and a half or 2 hours, your body's going to give way. As much as you're mentally strong to kind of like push through the entire thing, your body's not going to be able to cope because it's just not used to that intensity. But conditioning can be resolved quite easily, right? You know,
Okay.
if you were to prepare yourself way beforehand
Yeah.
and progressively overload yourself in training,
Yeah.
then that is
With a combination of running and weight training, as
correct.
you said. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So poor conditioning is one of the reasons why people cramp.
Yeah.
Now another is improper nutrition or
Okay.
insufficient nutrition.
Okay. I'm very
you know.
interested about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this was something I also kind of learned and discovered myself not too long ago. A lot of the knowledge about this was picked up when I started doing endurance sports, which was
Okay.
not very long ago. Basically, what our body needs, right, is water and electrolytes.
Okay.
Okay, together with a little bit of glucose or carbs
Okay.
to help us perform optimally.
Yeah.
For such, I would say Hyrox is a long event.
It is long.
So our body is burning a lot of the fuel,
Okay.
you know, and if we don't replenish it in a timely manner, then we are bound to either cramp up or just hit the wall, as what runners
Okay.
call it during the marathon, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so Hyrox organizers do provide stuff like water,
100 plus, I think.
100
Yeah.
plus, you know, for the isotonic drink,
Yeah.
and even Red Bull.
Yeah, and Red
you
Bull.
know, and this will kind of help you out,
Okay.
you know, in your race if you do consume it in a timely manner. However, you should also practice your fueling strategy during
Okay.
your training sessions as well. So if
How
let's
far
say,
before are you talking about?
I would say once you start implementing your partial or full simulation training, like
Or you should be hydrating.
yeah, you should be
Okay.
hydrating and testing out these different fuels. So if,
Okay.
for example, if I've never drank a Red Bull, you know, during one of my training sessions,
Yes.
I should not be touching the Red Bull.
That's absolutely
Right.
right, because I haven't drunk
Yeah.
a Red Bull before my training session, and before my Taiwan Hyrox, I downed 2 Red Bull, and I
Yeah.
tell you, I was so jittery the whole
Ah,
time.
Correct. And that's a mistake which a lot of us
Yeah.
face as well. Like for myself, not during the Hyrox,
Yeah.
I made a pretty dumb decision to
Yeah.
test out a new nutrition.
Okay.
You know, during my race. This
Okay.
was a triathlon in Singapore back in May.
Okay.
Yeah. So during the running portion of the race, it was quite long already, like four hours ish into
Oh my
the
God.
event. Yeah. So I was thinking, okay, I need to kind of like supplement or top up my
Yes.
fuels. So I took out this gel which I've never tried before. It looked pretty fancy, lah. You know, the design of the
Fancier the
packet.
better. Yeah.
Right. You know, then I just like popped it in my mouth.
Yes.
And it was so pungent, you know, the odor and the taste was so strong. Yeah, like my body rejected it almost immediately. So I ended
Okay.
up vomiting and throwing
Oh my
it all
God,
up.
okay.
Yeah, and all the nutrition which I consumed in the previous segment, the bike, you know.
All
which
had come out.
All had come out. And I needed it to kind of like sustain
Okay.
my body. So
Yeah.
it was a poor decision. And
Okay.
I would just reiterate that any nutrition plan that you may have,
Must try it
practice
out at least once.
correct,
Yeah.
before the race. Yeah.
Okay, that got it. So
Yeah.
just for my own personal advice, since I'm going to be doing Hyrox, when you say replenish during, are you talking about every round you should be drinking something, or like some of my teammates that say I'm not going to drink until station 7? I'm like, how do you do it?
Well, I would like yourself to think of your body as I've shared before, right? With a few others as well, as an electric vehicle, not like one that is powered by petrol.
Okay.
So when I say that, it means that as your energy and your fluids are starting to deplete,
Yeah.
okay, like anywhere around the 60 to 50% mark, you should be thinking of topping yourself up. You know,
But you know, I
then
feel like
already.
when you're in the race and there's adrenaline, you yourself are such a poor gauge of thirst. You know what I mean?
Correct.
Yeah.
That is where your training sessions come into play.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Because if you haven't been in that situation before, like under that stress, I mean, it's hard to kind of like mimic the actual race intensity, but the best you can do in training is to give yourself that pressure that, okay, I have to perform, you know, at a certain level
Yeah.
by this certain time.
Yeah.
And that's when I'm going to kind of dial into how I feel.
Okay.
And when you know that, okay, at this point of time I need to replenish my fluids, just take a quick note, you know, how long
Okay.
into the training that have I been doing this work for.
Yeah.
And then on race day, aim to kind of top up your fuels,
Okay.
like at the same time.
So for you, how long would that be when you do your Hyrox? Was it every 2 stations?
Well, it depends because I would go by time instead of stations because everyone's performance
may be different,
right? So I made it a point to top up my fluids and salts at the 30-minute mark, and then subsequently every 15 minutes.
How did you top up your fluids and salts?
Okay, so I did make use of the isotonic 100 plus and the water which Hyrox provided.
Yeah.
On top of that, I also consume what they call a salt pill.
Okay.
Yeah, so this salt pill basically is a very concentrated amount of salt which you basically
I've seen those in the capsules, right? Okay.
You just pop it into your mouth and then you just kind of wash it down with water.
Okay.
That pill itself is very potent. I think if I'm not wrong, it contains about 1,000 mg of sodium.
Okay.
Yeah, and
any potassium? Because that's what causes the cramps.
Correct.
Yeah.
So sodium, potassium, even some magnesium as well.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, so I took that at the 30-minute mark.
30 minutes,
Yeah, and subsequently I took another one at the 20 minutes later.
Okay.
Yeah. So that is with regards to salt.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think in total, if I'm not wrong, if I managed to keep track correctly, I consumed like 12 of those small cups of water and isotonic.
Yeah.
Yeah, 12 may sound like a large number, right?
Yeah.
But the amount they give in each cup
actually
is
not
very
a lot.
little.
Okay.
Yeah, so when I actually went to the aid station, I made it a point to grab at least like 3 of those small cups.
Yes, okay.
You
so
know,
you're very hydrated.
Yes, correct. And that's with regards to like your electrolytes and your water.
Okay.
And for my fueling, I actually brought along with me a gel.
Not the same gel as the one that you
not
threw
the
up.
one.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the one which I have trained and practiced with.
Okay.
And I found it very helpful in kind of like
it's a
topping
glucose gel.
Yes, it's a glucose gel.
Okay.
So I took it around the 45-minute mark.
Okay, so you are splitting it up, salt, glucose.
Correct.
Yeah.
So for a beginner, it might seem like there's a lot of calculation and reminding yourself like when to take this and that.
Yes.
Yeah, so make it a little bit easier for yourself, you know, just mark it at every half an hour interval.
Yeah.
And that way you should, you know.
I think that's very good advice, you know, because by the time you are thirsty, it's already actually too late. You probably have depleted in the electrolytes, and just because you drink it, it also doesn't work immediately. So you may want to preempt it a bit.
Yes, correct.
So the glucose gels, how many of those did you consume in total?
Oh, I just took one during the race itself.
And that's
but
it?
Prior to that, like before the race started, I actually took one 15 minutes before my start time. Yeah. So I felt that gave me a little bit of a boost, you know, because when everyone's excited, we tend to want to expend a little bit more energy at the start.
Yes.
So
no Red Bull before, just the gels and your isotonic drinks.
Yeah, no Red Bull for me. Yeah.
Okay, because it gets you jittery?
Mainly because I've never really trained with it.
So that's not what you.
Yeah, correct. So if let's say it works for you, like during training, that is fine to do it in the race day itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so another question is the nutrition part, way before. How do we plan for this? Do we take more protein to build a muscle, or it's too late, we might just carb load, or do we even need the carb load?
Okay, so going back very early on into, let's say when you are just starting your fitness journey, right? And you're thinking of, or maybe when you have already signed up for Hyrox and you're starting your training, it is going to be a very vigorous process, right? Where you are combining your runs and your strength training. So you need a lot of energy to perform this exercises, this workout. So the main fuel source for your training all the way up leading to Hyrox would be your carbs. You know, so carbohydrates are key; they are crucial. A lot of
but how long before you think?
So I would say carbs is required basically from the very beginning.
Because you're training. Okay.
Correct. In general, you need carbs in your diet. Okay, don't cut it out when you are training. Protein is also important. Okay, so make sure you have protein to kind of like repair and rebuild your muscles.
And build your muscle.
Correct. And then as you lead up to the race, you know, carb loading, yes, that works to an extent. If you are already consuming a lot of carbs, then I would say perhaps you don't have to really focus on that too much. But if you have not been taking a lot of carbs in, then you might want to consider maybe like a week out to gradually build up your carb intake.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you do that? Do you build up your carb intake?
For myself, I didn't actually see the need to.
Yeah.
Yeah, mainly because carbs is like my staple, so I have it quite regularly, quite often.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
for somebody who
emphasis on that.
doesn't, who don't usually carb load, how much carbs are we talking about? Like a packet of rice, or more than that, 3 times a day, or?
Okay, so perhaps let's talk about maybe 3 days before the event.
Yeah.
That would be an ideal time to kind of like increase your regular carb intake. So if let's say you have your breakfast, you can have like a toast or a few slices of bread. And then for your lunch, you also want to have like rice or pasta, those complex carbs. And then be a bit mindful of your fiber intake. So you want to avoid any new food, anything which will kind of like upset your stomach.
Because I know you did very well, and you did Men's Pro in June.
Yes.
So you did level up, and you actually came in second?
Third place in the age group, correct.
That's actually quite amazing, right? Because I think the first 2 were they were Caucasians, were they?
I think so. Yeah, it caught me off guard that I managed to even podium in the first place.
You were so fast. So that's why I want to know all the tips. So how did you actually prepare for the Men's Pro, from men's singles to Men's Pro? That's quite a big jump, you know.
It is. Like the weights involved mainly. So for example, the sleds, from pushing 152 kilos, right, I had to bump it up by 50 and push 202.
That is crazy.
Yeah, so I did go into the race knowing that my biggest challenge would be the heavier weights involved, right? So the game plan was a little bit different than when I did my men's singles, the open category last year. Going back to the drawing board, I studied my performance in the previous race and noticed that my running timings had a lot of room for improvement, mainly because the splits, the difference for each of the laps that I did, had a very big jump. So I could be running a fast lap on round number 2 and then slow down by 30 seconds to a minute in the second the round after. Yeah, so this wasn't really ideal if I wanted to perform relatively well for the race, based on advice from the experts and just from observing those who did well.
You were not running consistently.
There you go. So consistent running paces is crucial if you want to do well for your race.
Just to ask, what was your split timing like, and what did you hope to bring it down to?
Okay, so in 2023, I was running maybe an average of like 5:30 to 5:45. Yeah, my slowest lap was after the lunges, and that was like around 6 minutes-ish. Maybe I started off a bit too strong in the beginning, therefore energy kind of like depleted towards the end. So I actually went to focus on my running a lot more, going into the Men's Pro race, with the intention of just cutting a lot of
the time off.
Just on the runs, because running is 50% of the sport, right?
So that's why you focus so much on the running, because if your running can improve, then your time will improve.
Exactly. And that's basically what happened and what helped me for my Men's Pro performance. Yeah. So my average time for the recent race in June was around 4 minutes 20 seconds.
That's crazy fast.
So I managed to slice off like a 1 minute-ish pace.
Wow, that's like a sprint,
Yeah, I mean it varies, right? Like every individual's performance. We have the pros, the elites running sub 4, That's what I aspire to do one day.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but anyway, if anyone's like looking to perform their best, in Hyrox, they should be considering running a consistent
training.
pace.
So you focus a lot on your running. So just a word of advice to our people who may want to be doing Hyrox when they are doing the race. What kind of pace should they be running at? Should they be running at their zone 2 pace where it's very easy, or should they be sprinting? Because like you say, if they sprint too fast, then they will find themselves very tired very early on.
Correct. So a lot of beginners tend to make the mistake of starting off too strong. That's really not their fault, given the race atmosphere and the crowd. It's easy to get carried away and push yourself a little bit harder in the beginning, only to pay the price towards the end. A safe bet would be to run at your zone 2 pace during...
Zone 2, that's very...
It's very conservative, right?
Very conservative, right?
Correct.
Very relaxed and slow.
And that will kind of assure or guarantee you a finish.
Okay.
So if that's your goal...
Was your 4:30 a Zone 2 pace? No, I don't think so.
No. My 4:20 pace was my threshold, so...
Okay.
Yeah.
Threshold pace being your Zone 3 to 4?
I would say my Zone 4, just
Zone 4, okay.
under my maximum pace.
Okay.
Yeah, because if you were to run at your maximum, by the time you enter your station, you're just going to be burnt out.
Okay.
Yeah, so if it's your first race ever and if you had not had a long enough lead time to kind of like dial into how your body feels like running at a super intense pace, right? It is advisable to kind of pull back slightly on the runs.
Yes.
If your goal is just to complete the race.
Yes.
Now, if you want to achieve a PB or even go for that podium,
then you have to.
Then you would have to kind of like dial it up slightly, right?
Yeah.
And really push yourself to be under the limit to the of when you actually blow up. And that's very risky.
That's very risky.
Yeah. You have to train those runs in training enough. So that you can kind of like know when to pull back and when to push.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I have so many questions about this. Even something very silly and simple, like what shoes? Okay. Now, some shoes I actually find it's better for me to run.
Okay.
But I cannot do the sled push and pull on those shoes because they are sort of like a boat and not stable. So what do you wear for such a good timing in your men's pro race?
I kind of like went with the crowd, right? And picked up a pair of those Puma DV8 shoes.
Yes, how come everybody is wearing that?
I don't know, I guess Puma did something right with their marketing lah.
Right,
yeah, but anyway, I found those shoes to be a good blend of a lightweight performance shoe with a plate that kind of like helps you with your
run, but it's not too running focused, right?
Exactly. At the same time, the outsole, the grip of the shoe at the base was enough to kind of allow me to plant my foot and push that sled.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of people tend to overlook that because they're so focused on either a shoe which is very fast for running.
Yeah.
But when it comes to stability and grip, they lose out on that. Yeah.
Okay.
So that is something to consider when you're picking up your pair of shoes.
Okay, now that we got all the tips. And now for the people who are not their first time, they have gone to the Hyrox, is there any secret tips you can give all these people so that they can race better? Like every station, what are the secret tips? Like maybe for the SkiErg, they need to do this. For the farmer's carry, they need to hold it this way and not this way. Is there any secret tips that you have picked up over this year or so training for Hyrox?
Okay, well, I would say be efficient with your movements.
Okay.
Yeah. So you want to be intentional with every push, pull, jump, lunge.
Okay.
Don't follow the crowd and don't get overly excited and carried away by the pace of which the person next to you is going for.
Yeah.
Even if it seems like they are pulling or pushing faster than you, trust your game plan, trust your training. And basically that should kind of carry you through the race.
Do you ever look at your heart rate when you're doing the race and say, I'm not going to let it get above 160?
Okay, so it's very controversial,
yes,
but I truly believe if you are racing to either get a PB or to get a podium.
But you still want to finish.
You still want to finish, yeah?
Yeah.
The heart rate data is useless.
Oh, really?
Really,
okay.
Yeah. It's really depends on your perceived exertion.
Okay.
Like you should know your own body's limit. Push yourself close to it. Don't surpass it.
Okay.
And that's gonna ultimately give you a PB.
Okay.
And how do you actually get that dialed in to that feeling?
Yeah.
You gotta train.
You gotta train.
You gotta bring yourself up to that point often enough.
Yeah.
To be so familiar with how it feels, and when you are racing, it's going to be second nature. Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm going to go station by station, and you give me the secret so that when I go and do it this weekend, I can do very well. So SkiErg, that's the first station. Is there any tips for the SkiErg?
All right. So
you said efficient, so I guess it's an up-down movement. No twisting of the wrist at all.
Not really. I would say you want to ensure a maximum stretch, right? So you might see a lot of participants doing that tiptoe.
Is that good or not good?
It's good in a sense if you are not, say, very tall, right? It allows you to reach up a little bit more, to ensure a longer pull.
Does that also mean if you're doing a relay or doubles, the taller person should be skiing more?
Well, I guess it could work that way, right?
Right.
Yeah. On top of reach as well, you want to think about a powerful pull.
Okay.
Yeah. And you probably won't have to kind of pull too often if you're able to do it in a forceful manner. Yeah. So a hard pull, allowing that fan blade to spin and the distance to accumulate.
Okay.
And on the way up, that you should think of that as your recovery.
Okay.
Yeah. Before your next hard pull.
So you're saying that actually the distance is the important thing. So if you can be on your tiptoes and have a strong hard pull, you're actually having less pull.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about the resistance?
You to catch your breath.
You just leave it at what they said? Which is 4, I think.
4 could be for the one for the ladies. If I'm not wrong, the guys one might be 6 or 7.
Okay.
Yeah. So usually I train with the 7. It's very individual.
It's very individual.
Okay. Yeah. So just set the resistance to how you would in your training.
Okay.
Yeah. And it shouldn't feel too foreign.
Okay.
Yeah.
One question, you are doing doubles this time.
Yeah,
is there a way that you structure it with your teammate? Is it going to be a 50-50 split or do you have this secret complex,
Well, it's not going to be secret now, right? So basically, unless both partners are of the exact same fitness level, right, it's going to be a bit difficult to split it 50-50. So I'm going in with my wife, right? She's doing Hyrox for the first time. Yeah. And out of the two of us, I would say I'm a little bit of the stronger runner.
Okay.
Yeah. So the strategy going into this event would be for myself to start off the station.
Okay, so she can rest.
So she can rest from the run.
Yeah.
Okay, and then for me to end the station as well. So her work ideally would be right smack in the middle.
Okay.
So by doing this, it allows her time to rest after the run and before we start the next run, so that when we do take off for the next kilometer of running, we would be able to kind of like maintain that target pace which we set out to do.
Okay. Well, you're a very good husband. So that's a tip for all the good husbands out there racing with their wife. You need to start and end the station. Okay.
Ideally, yeah.
So the second one, is it the push?
Sled push, yes.
Push, okay. So when it comes to the push, what advice can you give me? Because I actually watched the Women's Pros Championship and I saw them pushing, and in the middle, they haven't finished the lap. I think one of the champions actually stopped,
Yeah.
She literally stopped and then she did it again. And I wondered why. I guess she didn't want her perceived exertion to...
Yes. So the sled push is one of the quickest way to build up lactic acid in your muscles.
Yeah.
And you don't want that to happen.
Because so it's station 2 only.
Exactly. So early on to the race, right? And a lot of us tend to make the mistake of basically pushing the sled from the beginning to the end.
Yes, I thought that
breaks.
it had to be bad.
Yeah. But actually for myself, when I was performing my recent race in June, I had to take multiple breaks as well.
And it's okay?
And it's okay. To
take multiple breaks?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So the intention was to kind of like maintain that lactic build up to the minimum.
So you don't want your muscles to ever feel like they are in
They're
such
blowing up. Yeah.
Okay. I know that feeling, right?
Correct,
so just before that feeling, you want to stop. And even if it's just for a few seconds and you restart, that's okay.
Exactly. Just do a shake, do a stretch, and then you go at it again.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is going to help you out in the subsequent run that you do.
Okay.
It allows you to kind of pick up your pace and go back to that target run speed which you want to.
Yes.
And that is not possible if your legs are all on fire.
That's actually a very good, because some people just want to do the whole thing.
Yeah.
They may do it very fast, but then their runs actually become slower.
Exactly. Take strategic breaks.
How about your arms for the sled push? Is there a specific ways that you like your arms to be extended together, or some people use their biceps, right?
Correct. So for the method at which you hold the sled is also very individual. If you have been practicing the one with your arms tucked in, you're holding onto the bar with your hands, then I would say, use that same method as you would from training in the race, so as to not mess up your rhythm. I would advise against the method where you extend your arms to push. That puts a lot of strain and stress on the shoulders.
Okay,
and,
so closer to the sled tends
closer
to be
to the
better.
sled, yeah.
Yeah, either biceps or with the arms.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
So the bicep one where you hug the bars, or this one, is really individual preference. Yeah.
And then the third station is my nemesis, it's the sled pull.
Yeah.
I became really religious when I did that in June because I kept praying to God. It was so terrible. So what kind of advice do you have for the sled pull?
Okay, so for the sled pull,
The rope kept slipping, my
Yeah,
arms, my
correct.
skin tore off.
yeah, so there's a few ways to go about doing this. I mean, obviously you want to have a good grip on the rope, right?
Yeah.
They do provide chalk on that
Yes.
day itself. So
Yes.
if you are able to quickly chalk up your hands
Okay.
before you start
That really helps, huh?
start
Okay.
the station. Now, the next thing you want to also think of is to use your entire body for the movement,
And not just the arms?
not just your arms,
Okay.
mainly because your arms are a very small muscle group and they
Okay.
tend to get very tired quickly
Okay.
as compared to if you were to spread out the load using your entire body.
Okay.
Now, when you're performing this station,
Yeah.
you are given a space to move.
Okay.
You know, that space, ideally, you want to maximize the usage.
Okay.
So, begin your sled pull at the edge of that space or the box which you are doing that exercise.
Yeah.
And as you are pulling with your arms, you want to be walking backwards with the sled as well. So, by splitting the load from your arms and your legs,
Yeah. Then you need less pulls,
you need
right?
lesser pulls.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that would be, I would say, the main tip.
That's
Yeah,
the main
that's
tip for
main
the
tip.
sled. Okay, so chalk up. Do you wear gloves?
I personally did not wear gloves,
Okay.
but might consider in my next individual event in the future.
Okay.
Yeah, so the gloves probably
and
would.
cons, huh?
Yeah, there's pros and cons. You should get one which is easy to remove after the station because you don't want to be having it on for the entire race.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it gets a little bit
okay.
obstructive,
Yes.
and once it's sweaty, it's going to
Yeah.
be very, very, yeah.
Okay.
So I did see one of the guys who did relatively well for the race,
Yeah.
kind of like tuck his gloves in his waistband.
Okay.
You know, and only putting
Only
it on
when he needs it. Okay, that's
only when he
actually
needs
very
it.
good
So,
advice. Yeah.
Yeah, you could consider doing that.
Yeah,
for
okay.
the
Because I mean, your
sled
palms
pull.
also sweat, and you're right, it
Yeah,
does get
there
quite
you go.
hot and
There you
sweaty.
go.
Okay, so the station after the station 4, would that be, is that
The burpees.
burpees? Oh my gosh,
Yes,
that must have
correct.
been your favorite station.
Not really. Not
Okay.
really. Yeah, I was suffering on that station as well.
Oh, I do have
Burpees-
one question.
Yeah.
The burpees, do I use all my strength and try to jump as far forward as possible or conserve my strength and take little bunny hops? I still haven't decided what is
well,
the key for me.
it's like a rock and a hard place, right?
Yeah.
Well, I would say, you know, this you probably hear me repeat this quite a lot of times, but do what you do in training.
Okay.
Yeah. So if in training you are used to doing jumps which are further,
Yeah.
that allows you to kind of cover more distance and you will have lesser of
Lesser.
burpees to do.
Yeah, okay.
I think for me that was my primary strategy, and when it comes to me having to go down to the ground,
Yeah.
I use that as like a mini recovery.
Okay.
So I did take my time to kind of get up and prepare for the next jump. So
Okay.
I would say once you're at the bottom, breathe, take a deep breath.
Yeah. And
That's
again,
the-
no rush.
Yeah, no
Okay.
rush, you know.
Yeah.
Because that's the only time you get to lie on the floor.
Yeah. So
you know,
burpees, you
and-
just actually it's just pure endurance. There's
Yeah.
no magic secret to
It's
it.
no magic
okay.
secret, yeah.
Yeah. After the burpees, is it lunges or rower?
you have to do the rows first.
Rows,
Yeah.
okay. So is there any tips for the rows? I saw a video of some lady doing
Yeah,
the row.
yeah, no,
do we
no.
do that because that's a further distance?
Well, definitely don't do that method, yeah.
Especially when you haven't trained for it.
Exactly. So similar to the skier,
Yeah.
you want to think of a powerful drive or a pull of the
Okay.
handle towards
Okay.
your middle
So not
section.
many small little pulls, but really you
No.
are doing big pulls
Correct,
and then
correct.
going back.
And
okay.
the concept also basically is to allow you time to recover as you return
Okay.
the handle towards the starting point.
Okay,
Right?
okay.
So one hard pull allows the
recover.
fan to spin more and accumulate distance.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, and then as you come back, catch your
Yeah.
breath.
Okay,
and pull
okay.
again.
So it's hard pull and then relax, hard pull and
Definitely,
relax.
because
Okay.
especially for the singles event, it does amount to quite a distance. 1 kilometer, you're usually going to take like 4 minutes plus, you
Yeah,
know, even
okay.
5.
Yeah.
So take your time. There's no
Okay.
rush.
After a rower is lunges.
Farmers carry first.
Oh, farmers carry,
Yes,
okay.
farmers
So
carry.
yes, the tip, is there any special tip, the way we can hold the weight so that we never have to put it down? Do we run, do we walk?
Okay, so like I said, you have to do it as how you did it in training.
Yeah.
So if let's say you plan to run with the weights, make sure that you have done it before, because I think I've seen someone trip with the kettlebells when they attempted to run. It's like their first time doing so on the event day. So be careful with that part. With regards to the grip, the start,
chalk up again, right?
Yes, chalk up. Overly chalk up, I would say. And try to grip the kettlebells closer towards the kings of the handle.
The front or the back?
The front part. So it's a rounded part on the handle, the king. Grab those. It allows for a more natural and firmer grip. And allows you to hold it relatively longer, more comfortably. And if let's say you are not able to cover the entire 200-meter distance in one holding, it's fine to put it down. But give yourself a mental timer that you have to pick it up in, let's say, 5 or 10 seconds. And within that time, really try to loosen up your arms. And when you pick it up, give yourself another mental checkpoint that I have to cover this much before I put it down.
It's really quite mental.
Correct.
That's very good tips. Okay, so the next one is the lunges with the sandbags. I do have questions. So the lunges, your knee has to touch the floor. Do you hold the sandbags at the side? Do you hold it in front?
Okay, so yes, you did mention the knees touching the floor, so that is crucial. That's what the judges are looking out for. Another thing which a lot of people tend to overlook also is that hip extension. So basically after you lunge forward, when you stand up, you have to ensure that your hips are extended, meaning you are doing.
So you cannot sort of like crouch down and lunge.
Correct.
That's what the judges are looking for?
Yes, correct. So be mindful of that.
They want you to completely stand up and then do the next lunge.
There you go. So that's with regards to the movement itself. Now, hand placing, I would recommend holding the handles which are a little bit closer towards your
at
head.
the sides.
It really depends. I mean, if you have broad shoulders and if you are fine holding it, at the extreme ends, that's okay. But personally, I like it closer to me. So I'll hold those handles there. It depends on the weight which you're using. If I'm not wrong, the 10 and 20 kilo sandbags tend to have a little bit more of a curve, or allows the sandbag to mold onto your shoulders. This is not the case for the men's pro weight. When you're carrying a 30 kg sandbag,
oh my gosh,
it's like a brick. So
maybe that's why you are talking about here, because when it's curving around your shoulder, probably it doesn't matter.
It's easier to hold the handles wherever.
30, that's crazy.
30, yes, correct. So it really depends on the weight you are using and how conditioned you are when you are in this station. So
but you can't put the weight down in this station at all.
So that's very tricky. If I'm not wrong, the penalty for putting the weight down twice is a disqualification.
So even if you're very tired and you're lunging, you cannot lunge anymore, you just have to stand there and hold the weight.
There you go.
So you have to finish faster anyway, otherwise you'll be holding the weight.
Correct. But that also can be dangerous if, let's say, you don't pace yourself well. So if you do start off going back to back on your reps, you're going to find yourself in that pain cave very quickly.
So what do you do? Do you stand there for a while?
What I did was actually to pace myself out.
So not too fast.
To take slower steps, which allowed my legs to kind of like catch a breather before I go for the next lunge.
Instead of,
by that late into the race, you're gonna feel like that stretch lasts forever. Like it's never ending.
Because that's 7, right? This is station 7.
Station 7.
Already almost at the end.
It's very painful. So what I keep telling myself when I was in that station was that one leg at a time. One leg at a time.
Actually, I was quite happy by that station that I had already done till 7.
Exactly. So that's basically the lunges.
Then the last station is the absolute worst for me, because I usually will cramp up by then and then going into the wall balls. Is there any tips you can give any of us for the wall balls? Because I find the wall balls so incredibly difficult. I don't seem to squat low enough, and when I go low enough, I cannot hit the target, and then my hands are so sweaty, the wall balls are so slippery.
Correct. So what will kind of like help cushion this wall ball station on the actual race really goes back to your training, how strict you have been with yourself.
So you have to train wall balls,
and not just train it, without any focus or intention, but rather be critical with your form as you are training. Don't discount on your technique and the requirements for you
Yes.
to perform a good wall ball.
That's absolutely very true,
Yeah.
because when I trained with you, I think the first time, I didn't squat quite as low, and I
Yeah.
thought it was okay. Then when I went to Taiwan, it was no count, no count, no
Yeah,
count.
and it's
So
very
I did a
frustrating.
lot of no counts, and if only I had just done proper ones, I probably would have saved more energy.
Correct. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that is something which we don't really want to hear, right? On
Yes.
the race itself, no counts or no rep.
Okay.
So ensure that when you begin, when you are, I mean, you're going to be very tired already, but when you
Very
are the
tired.
freshest,
Yeah.
which is at the start, ensure that all the reps you do are perfect.
Okay, so the tips is to train, but on the day itself, let's say I'm very trained, I'm so tired, I'm cramping up. What do you suggest? What, do in sets of 5?
Yeah, so basically when you tackle this station,
Yeah.
right, when you start, you want to try to go for that largest cluster reps that you can manage in the beginning.
yeah.
So whether it's 20, 30, some
Yeah.
might even push it to 40.
Wow,
But
okay.
just make sure that all those 40 are with good form.
Yes.
And you don't have any of those reps not counted. Yeah, so once you get a big chunk of it out of the way, you can actually break the remaining repetitions into smaller clusters.
Okay,
And this will kind of make that 100 reps feel
Okay.
a little bit more manageable.
Yeah, okay, that's very good
Yeah.
advice. I mean, before I even wrap up, I needed to ask you things like, when you were doing the race, what was the hardest thing going through your mind? What was the hardest thing? Was it leg cramps? Was it, exhaustion? Or was it just mental?
I think for myself, when I was pushing that hard, I had a lot of things going on in my mind. Like when I was on the running track, I had a mental target of like crossing a certain landmark by a certain time,
I
because
see.
one of the challenges in Hyrox runs,
Yeah.
especially, is that there probably won't be any GPS available, so you won't get that running pace which you actually can refer
okay,
to.
you're right.
I mean, some people do say that they have the indoor tracking mode,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
may or may not be very accurate, right?
Okay.
So it goes down really to how you feel on your runs.
Perceived exhaustion.
Perceived exertion. So I had that occupying my mind when I was running, and then I was also thinking about taking my nutrition in a timely manner.
Okay, so all these is- yeah.
all of those kind of like outweighed the thought that I had to kind of like complete the race within a certain time.
Okay.
I was just focusing on executing my game plan to the best I could.
Okay.
And then just leaving whatever finishing time
Yeah.
to be as it is.
So it's about having a game plan in your mind and
just sticking to it. Sticking to it,
okay.
yeah.
If there's one piece of advice for anyone racing in Hyrox, what would it be?
Well, if it's your first time, remember to have fun.
Okay.
Yeah?
You're absolutely
Because that's basically why we decided to participate in such a grueling event in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't have fun out of it, then why do it at all?
Yeah.
If you're going to take the race seriously, just remember to follow your game plan.
Okay.
Yeah, follow your game plan, and if you do so, down to the very last detail, you should be able to execute it, well, and have a PB or even podium.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's very good advice. Thank you very much, Daniel. That wraps up this episode of Running to Glory, the Hyrox Training Playbook. A huge thank you to Daniel for sharing his insights, tips and personal anecdotes on training for Hyrox and achieving peak performance. Whether you are an aspiring athlete or just someone looking to improve your fitness, we hope you found Daniel's advice both practical and inspiring. Remember, the journey to fitness glory is a marathon, not a sprint, and every step forward counts. If you have enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends. Stay motivated, keep pushing your limits, and until next time, keep running towards your glory.